Welcome to the deep dive. So you sent over a bunch of sources, all pointing to U.S. wealth inequality being, well, way out there compared to other advanced economies. Our mission today is really to dig into the specific policies making it this way and why fixing it isn't just social, it's a major economic thing.
Yeah, and you really have to start with the sheer scale of it, just to grasp the issue. The sources are pretty clear. The richest 10% of households, they control something like 67.2% of all the wealth in the U.S.
67%. Wow. That's huge. And if they hold almost 70%,
then the bottom half, the bottom 50%, they're left with just 2.5% collectively.
2.5% for half the country. That kind of imbalance just feels unstable, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And the key thing the sources stress is that this gap, it's not some inevitable outcome of markets. It's the result of specific policy choices that actively create what they call regressive redistribution.
Regressive redistribution. So like actively moving wealth upwards, not just letting it accumulate.
Exactly. Think less, trickle down, more siphon up. It's systematic.
Okay, so if it's systematic, driven by policy, where do we see the big levers? Let's get into what the sources call the health tax on the poor. That sounds significant.
Oh, it is. This might be the most startling piece of data. Because the U.S. doesn't have universal healthcare financing, the system itself ends up pulling wealth away, especially from lower earners. Get this. Back in 2014, medical costs lowered the median income for the poorest tenth of people by almost half. 47.6%.
Wait, nearly 50% of their income just gone to healthcare costs?
Gone. Just to cover medical needs. It basically prevents any real chance of accumulating savings or capital for that group.
And how does that compare to, say, the very top earners?
Well, that's the kicker. For the top 1%, those same medical costs, they reduced their median income by only 1.3%.
1.3% versus nearly 50%. That's not just a difference, that's a different reality. It's like a structural barrier.
It absolutely is a huge, disproportionate shock hitting those who can least afford it.
And then you mentioned this is compounded by what's happening with wages.
Exactly. The second big failure highlighted is the erosion of the wage floor. The federal minimum wage is still $7.25 an hour. Hasn't budged since 2009.
$7.25. And working full-time at that rate, you're actually below the federal poverty line, right?
You are. So the law basically ensures that a full-time job isn't enough to escape poverty, which kind of defeats the original purpose of a minimum wage, doesn't it? And it's a massive driver of the wage gap we see widening.
So, okay, you've got wages stuck at the bottom and huge unpredictable health costs hitting the same group hardest. How do these things ripple outwards? How do they power that regressive engine across the whole economy?
Well, connecting those dots, the sources argue this extreme inequality isn't just unfair, it's actually inefficient. It acts like a drag on the entire GDP. The estimate is it reduces overall growth by about 1.5%, primarily because you're shifting money away from people who would spend it immediately than lower income households.
Right, people who spend most of what they earn just to get by.
Exactly. And you're shifting it toward high savers. The top 1%, for instance, apparently saves over 30% of their income. That money isn't circulating as much. It doesn't fuel broad consumer demand.
So the argument is essentially that extreme concentration hurts the wealthy, too, in the long run, by shrinking the market.
That's the economic inefficiency argument, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not just about efficiency. It also dials up systemic risk.
Systemic risk. How so?
High inequality tends to fuel political polarization, populist movements, that kind of thing. It makes policy unpredictable. Think about sudden shifts, instability. That instability directly threatens the very democratic systems and rule of law that, are supposed to protect private investments and capital in the first place.
Interesting. So it's not just an economic drag. It's potentially a threat to the stability that capital relies on.
Yeah.
What do the sources suggest as structural fixes then?
The solutions focus on changing those institutions. So things like universal healthcare to stop those massive financial shocks at the bottom. Also, a significantly higher minimum wage to actually lift the floor and give labor a larger share.
Makes sense. Anything on the tax side?
Yes. Tax reform targeting, specifically large intergenerational wealth transfers. The idea mentioned is closing loopholes, maybe treating inherited assets, especially appreciated ones, as taxable income for the person inheriting them.
Right, so making inheritance function more like regular income in the tax code?
Something like that. The overall aim of these policies is to build more systemic resilience.
Resilience, meaning a more stable economic structure benefits everyone, including those at the very top, because it secures the whole system.
That's the core idea. A stable structure is the best long-term environment for any assets, including highly concentrated ones. So maybe the thought to leave you with is this. We know concentrated capital needs stability. So what level of political instability are you, or is society, willing to accept just to keep that short-term wealth concentration climbing?